We're doing episode 6 of our leadership series. This is going to be covering our road captains. Um, we're going to have a couple of guests with us here today. So, without any delay, we're going to go ahead and bring them on. Just fair warning on one of them, we just have audio as of right now. We're going to try to get their video working midstream here. But we're going to get going. So, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and let's get rolling. All right, welcome, guys. Welcome. We have a few guests with us here today. Let's see if I can get the last one in. We're gonna go ahead and go through intros here. Like I was saying, we've got one without any video right now. We're gonna try to get that squared away and fixed.
Look at that, we're up.
Got it. Hey.
I can even
All
hear
right, so
people.
we're gonna go through the introductions. There's a few faces that you guys will recognize and some new ones. We're gonna start with Scooby.
What's
You've been
up?
on here before.
What's going on, everybody?
Have you ever road captained? Do you have experience here?
Oh, just a little bit.
Oh, we just a little bit. All
Just
right.
a wee little
You guys, you guys know Scooby. You guys know Shots. What's up, Shots?
What's going on, gents? Long time no see.
Oh, and we got some new
Tuesday
faces.
night,
We've
huh?
got Boots. What's up, Boots?
Howdy.
What's going on, brother?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long you been riding, road captaining, stuff like that?
Oh, let's see. I've just been right about 10 years. Road captaining less than a year, but definitely put through the mix in that amount of time. I mean, a lot of trips and putting 15, about 8,000 miles on your bike in 1 year as a road captain is pretty good. I mean, especially when you're just thrown in the mix as non-road captain, and here you go. But it happens. So, but road captain after that, and took that responsibility to heart and did it the best I could.
Well, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. And then we also have Snickers. What's up, Snickers?
How are you?
Doing good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a former member of the club here, and I definitely miss you guys.
Hell yeah.
Been riding since about 1979, so got a lot of years riding. Been a road captain for the Harley Group, for a couple other associations and clubs I've been involved with, and I was road captain for a couple of years with you guys.
Nice. Well, we do miss you too.
Definitely.
It's been a crazy year though, hasn't it?
It's just get busier.
Yeah. So I was going to dive right into it. You guys know what we're covering on this episode. We're going to be covering the road captain. Everyone here has some level of experience with the road captain, either being one or dealing with one. So I was going to be starting with some of the road captain responsibilities. Essentially, it's pretty self-descriptive. They're generally responsible for, leading the club movement, leading the club formation from point A to point B or C, D, whatever. Movement on club trips, club runs, whatever you would like to call it. So the first category I was going to be hitting was, we all know that the road captain's also responsible for the route planning, right? So it's going to be starting with Boots. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of things a road captain would want to do with route planning?
Well, with route planning is just in a lot of consideration of, a lot of things. One, your weather, exactly what you're going to be running into, what you're going to be, that's what you need to know is what you're going to be running into, whether it be sunny, wet, dry, dry, snowy. You might run into those conditions. So it's good to know those things. It's also good to know what each person in your formation is going to be capable of, not just as a rider, but what their bike is capable of as well, on distance, everything like that, performance, speed, etc. And then also planning out your stops. Sometimes you can have a well-oiled plan, well-oiled stop, procedure, and then sometimes you just end up going by the seam of your pants, but that's just how it works sometimes. But other than that, you try and do the best you can to plan accordingly for routes for everyone that's around you, and then also before you want to do a pre-trip inspection on pretty much as many bikes as you can as a road captain, at the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. But
Yeah, we're gonna be covering a lot of that. Mostly what you're saying is that if you're planning a ride in February, you might not want to go through the high mountain canyons. Is that what you're saying?
correct.
And then we do a lot of events as a club, and road captains are going to be helping with that. So, Scooby, what are some things you do with as a road captain coordinating with an event?
Coordinate with an event. I mean, getting out there and making sure that everybody for that event is prepped on time, start times, meetup locations. Make sure you're as clear and everything's straight to the point.
Yeah.
As to what the route's going to be, so people can pre-plan if they need to break off early, if they need to, maybe try and join up, midway part through the ride, so that that if they can, we've got meet up stopping points or whatever.
Yeah.
And then coordinating with what type of bikes and ranges everybody has. As far as if you got a lot of baggers that can go 200 miles, and you got sporty that can only do 100 miles, you gotta coordinate that with everybody too.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially between gas stops, if you got a leg where you're, got an option between a 60 miles to your next stop, or 150, you're gonna have to take that into consideration for sure.
Mhm.
So next, Snickers, what would you say are some important responsibilities of a road captain?
Well, the road captain really needs to know the expertise of the people he's riding with, know what their riding styles are like. It's very important for a road captain to be able to have the entire formation or group ride to at least the performance of the least capable person. And that sounds bad in some cases, because some people don't have a very very experienced ability to ride. Found that out in some of the rides that I've been on, and that you've got somebody that doesn't like curvy roads or doesn't perform well into good leans. Others who want to hit the corners as quick as their bike will do and send off some sparks.
Yeah.
So knowing each one of the people's capability on how well they ride and what they're able to do is one of the most important things, and then just projecting from there what you expect as a road captain, because there's a lot of people with a lot of personalities. They like to do their own thing, and sometimes break formation, or ride doubles versus riding staggered. I mean, there's just a number of things that you really have to corral at the beginning of a ride.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Snickers. Do you feel like that's difficult trying to keep everybody happy as a road captain sometimes? Because
absolutely.
You got those that want to go fast, you got those that maybe want to go a little bit slower. What have you found to be successful tools that you've used to help mitigate some of those issues in group riding?
It's a really difficult thing to do as far as the road captain, because you can be either the hard ass that says this is exactly how it's going to be, and right up to throwing people out of the ride if you really want to be that way, or in certain circumstances where you're not able to control the people, like I say, the break off, the formation, they'll pass people, but getting to be a personality, to be somebody that that gets along with everybody, that just has a. I tried to be, when I was in any road captain position, to be the person that could understand, could talk to everybody, could explain kind of what the ride was, and very important for the road captain is to know where you're going and know where there's these different things that might pop up, like the others were saying, whether you've got a place where you might run into different types of weather, different types of riding. You're going to need to know a lot of that stuff and be able to express that to the people you're riding with, and at least trying to corral them to at least a certain style of riding that makes everybody mostly happy. And it's not always going to happen. It doesn't always work, but trying to be a personality that's not either a dick or just somebody that's a wallflower standing in the back and not controlling anybody. It's a balancing act.
There's that fine balance between being passive aggressive and being way too demanding.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I found that the road captain position is one of the harder roles to fill, right? Because it's demanding in its own right? Like there's a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, a lot of foresight, and a lot of thought that goes into it. And I find that with a lot of riders, when they're road captaining and they're moving down the road, that they are always constantly questioning themselves, right? They're like, oh, am I going fast enough? Am I going too slow? Should I move over to this lane or stay in this lane? And realistically, they should, my advice to anyone like that is to stop worrying about what everyone else is thinking and do what you think is best.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And then if you add comms in on that, and you got everybody chattering, and you've got people, saying, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Yeah, you can take other people's advice and everything like that, but like you said, you're the one that's got to tune it out and make that decision as to what's going to be the best. And especially if it's a larger group, you might not be able to sit to the back of the pack. You don't know if you're necessarily leaving somebody behind or something like that. So yeah, in my experience, in the 5-6 months that I did road captaining, it takes it's mentally draining. It takes a little bit away from the ride, enjoying it as a captain, because you're constantly thinking, okay, is this light going to change? Is this car going to come over in our lane? Is somebody going to try and cut in between the pack? Is somebody going to do whatever? It can be very, very draining.
Oh yeah. And we're going to hit a lot of these details, further on in the show too. Another point I wanted to address, and I'll ask this one to Shot since he served as a president. So a lot of people say that the road captain is, in charge of the club while on the road, right? A lot of them will say that he's the president of the road, What's your experience of dealing with road captains as a president when they're taking charge? Have you ran into some that are just taking it too far, or is it mostly that they're not taking it far enough? What's some of your personal experience as a president with road captains?
My personal experience, majority of the time we've had pretty good road captains, and I would say that they've done an excellent job. As a president, I would personally recommend to other presidents that they would try to not meddle in road captain business, right? Let them do their job. They're the expert. And I would say the one maybe caveat to that, where maybe it is appropriate for a president to step in, is if there are some serious safety concerns of what's going on and it's not being addressed by the road captain, then I think that's the president's, right and, responsibility to step in and be able to pull that, rank, because it's a safety concern, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, maybe just reminding them, hey, we have a a time schedule to meet. Other than that, let the road captain do his thing.
Yeah. Like, what if you have a road captain that's kind of disagreeing with a president or vice president on a route, right? Like mid route, mid ride, where the road captain's trying to keep the formation on a safer road for certain reasons, or I mean, you kind of got to go back and do you just delegate and follow along with your president, or do you stick with the, this is the best route? Like that's kind of a challenging situation if you think about it.
I think, and I'll just leave it at this. I think if a president is going to step in and try to change anything about a road captain's plan, it better have a really damn good, reason for doing so.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then vice versa. I mean, if a road captain,
sorry.
I was just going to say, if a road captain is like completely disregarding his, president's advice, you better have a good reason,
Well, and yeah, I mean, but it's 50-50. The road captain's got his route planned out. He's got fuel stops planned out. He may not know where that, where the president or whoever's, saying let's go this way is taking him. So he's going to second guess it. Not because the president's telling him to go that way, just because, okay, well, what happens if this happens now? Or what happens if we deviate from this plan? And maybe the president doesn't know that, hey, if we're supposed to be going this way and we've got a time, that we're going to be at XYZ location because so and so and so and so are going to meet up with us, but this new route takes us around that way and bypasses it. President might not know that, and as long as there's communication there as to why and from both sides.
I think proper planning, proper communication can solve a lot of those issues before you ever get on the road, right? It's like the road captain properly communicating. They have an agenda. They have a route plan. They say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the route we're taking. This is our SP time or our KSU time. This is, my estimated time for our gas stop. And as long as that's run through and approved, and everybody kind of is on the same page. Now, sometimes you need to make adjustments because, legs of that ride take longer than what you think. And maybe you're not trying to get into your motel at 2 a.m., right? Because, and that might not be the safest thing riding through, the night, and you got animals crossing the road in the middle of the desert and so on, right? So, but I would say that, with any type of member-to-member interaction, and in this case, you're talking about a road captain to president, is drop your ego. Like, this isn't about an individual. This is about the group and what's best for the group. And so you need to take, safety is a huge thing to take in consideration as a road captain. It should be your number one priority.
Exactly.
I was on a road. I think the ride you're talking about, Shots, that the road captain had in his mind where he was going, and that changed during the ride, and not changed after a stop. It changed mid-ride, and it was kind of an interesting thing to watch from behind.
Yeah.
So,
that kind of goes back to something else that we were also talking about, is that, you need to know as a road captain when to take someone else's advice and recommendation. And you also need to know when to, tactfully tell them to shut up. Right. Like, I've been in situations where I've been in, in rides, and I'm dealing with a lot of, bikes behind me, cars around me. I was seeing the lane merge ahead of me, right? So everything was collapsing. I had people trying to push out blocks, trying to open a lane for us to change lanes in when it was already covered. And, so we were all arguing, and then like I had our tail gunner trying to and I had to tell him, to back down and like, hey, I got this covered. You need to just wait a second. I'll call back up to you. But let me take care of this situation. And, pretty much just tell them, follow me and listen for a minute, and like sometimes you need to know when to take that advice, because you need to realize you can't see what's going on in the back of your formation, right? You can't see if there's a rider that's having a hard time, or if there's a car coming up on your rear a little too hot, passing a little aggressively. You can't always see what's going on behind you. So you need to have a combination of, the knowledge to tell people when to shut up and listen, and also have the experience to know when it is time to shut up yourself and listen to what they have to say. So I was going to be asking Boots the next question here. I was going to be asking him about this. Is like, we were talking about this a little bit earlier about how you need to know all the riders behind you. So like, what are some kind of things you would want to know and equate about riders behind you?
Well, you need to know what, like Snickers was saying, is you need to know what they're capable of, their riding skills, and also their bikes and how they ride as individuals. I mean, there's been plenty of people in formation to where you're a day or two in the trip, or even 10 minutes in the trip, to where they're already causing problems, or certain person isn't riding very safely within the group, and you just need to know, what people are capable of, what they're not capable of, and what they, take into account what they've done before, but also, try and learn what you can about new riders joining your group as well.
Mhm.
Just learning everything you can, and just also making sure that before you take off, everyone knows what kind of standard, what kind of pace you're going to set from the get-go before you even leave and start riding.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I had one example of that was, well, I mean, we all know we run weekly rides for our local area here, right? Multiple times a week, with multiple levels of experience within the riders. And we had a new rider, and this rider didn't know what they were doing. We're getting ready to roll through a canyon, and so I ended up staying in the back for this leg. I wasn't actually leading this ride, and we went through the canyon, and this rider's skill level personally wasn't assessed, right? So everyone's flying through this canyon between 40 and 60 miles an hour, and this rider is having a hard time holding 25. The next thing I know, I have the ride go ahead of me and move on, and I'm stuck with this rider, for approximately 30 miles through a canyon, which ended up taking us about 2 hours. I followed them throughout that whole canyon, and that was just a lack of knowing their skill level, right? And do you guys have any experiences of anything like that? Just like judgment calls you've made off of knowing a certain rider or not knowing a rider's skill set?
I think that's always the hard thing with the weekly rides that we do, because it's an open invitation ride. Anybody and everybody can show up, and you kind of have to take them as what they say. If they excuse me, if they say they've done canyons before, they say they've been riding for X amount of years, until you see them ride, you don't know. And that's the one downside to an open invitation ride. I
Mhm.
love it, because you're going to meet a ton of new people, but you just don't know what's going to show up every week.
Yeah.
One thing I would do when we would have rides that other people would join, or if I knew that people had less experience on certain things, as far as like a canyon ride, is to let those people know you do not exceed your ability. Ride in the
Yeah.
back, ride with the tail gunner. You may get separated from the group. Ride to your experience level, get through that canyon safely, and then catch up. This is where we will wait.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not a problem, especially when you got multiple people on these weekly rides that you don't know. That's the only way you can handle those. You can't have those people in the middle, because that's going to disrupt your entire formation. And it's not a cut to them to ride in the back. It's just more safety oriented, to make sure that they ride safely, have somebody with them, like you were saying, that you can't have them go off alone. Having
Well,
somebody
yeah,
ride
we always have to.
individual.
Yeah, we always have to remind people, to ride their own ride, because what's everyone's first instinct when they join a new group? Their very first instinct is to keep up, right?
Mhm.
And if they're not ready for that, they're putting themselves into some massive danger. So, I
Well,
totally.
I would add to that, Strike. I think that it depends on the person, right? I mean, I see the
Mhm.
same instincts. The basic instincts for people are fight or flight, right? And
Mhm.
so some people's instinct is to keep up, right? And other people's instinct is like, the flight, right? Is like I need to stay away from this group, and if there's any kind of situation that makes them somewhat nervous, then they immediately create tons of distance between them and the group, right? And
Yeah.
I think you see both of that, but I think both of those things can be mitigated with some proper planning, utilizing your tail gunners, and moving on with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess you are right. Like I have seen both in there, but I think the most problematic ones are the ones that grab the most attention, right? And those are the ones that we've seen that are riding beyond their means, I've seen riders overshoot corners because they didn't have the skill that they were trying to exhibit, Now, like that wasn't on our ride or anything like that. We usually keep everyone pretty tight and chill. But I'm not sure if you guys remember, but we broke off into a little bit of like a ride your own ride section, ride to your comfort level because we were going through a pretty technical canyon. And this rider kind of took up the lead and overshot a corner and just rode right up a mountain, So I mean, I've seen riders exceed their own limitations before, But I mean, you are right. I have seen both types come out, right? So real quick, what I was going to be going into next was going to be safety inspections on bikes. Now, Boots, I remember you've done a couple of these. What kind of things, as a road captain, are you looking at on someone's bike, and why are you looking at those items?
Well, first off, with that being said, is as a road captain, you want to make sure your people who ride in your group, especially on a long trip, have good inspections on their bikes done. But at the same time, too, is to where that also falls on an individual. Just that being said, with setting up trips and everything like that and inspecting bikes, to where you want to look at your main system, basically. You want to look, especially if you have a certain style of bike, to where these systems can, shake loose or go out faster than most other makes and models of bikes, to where you need to inspect your brake pads, you need to inspect cables, clutch cables, pedals, everything to make sure everything's tight, everything that would come loose, everything that would shake loose, brake pedals, clutch pedals, etc., foot pegs, floorboard, whatever. And then also a bigger part of it too would be make sure your maintenance is done, make sure your oil is full, make sure your oil is changed every 5,000 miles, transmission, primary case, if you have a Harley, stuff like that. And then also just making sure the exhaust is nice and tight, because anything that falls off, especially during a group ride, kind of sets you back, especially as a road captain and everybody else. Because I mean, it's not to say that it's inconsiderate, but more of like it's kind of irresponsible a little bit, to the point where you are now slowing down the process if you are on the side of the road trying to fix something that could have been prevented before you even left.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that sounds like a lot of inspecting for like larger trips and stuff too. But I mean, we also inspect, I mean, I've walked around and checked out people's tires before even short rides,
Oh yeah, definitely, especially on weekly rides,
And don't be afraid to send them home. As a road captain, you're responsible for the safety of your ride. I've been on several rides where I've seen the road captain of our club say, hey, you got cord showing, you're not riding with the group anymore. You need to, go home. You need to find the closest tire shop, or, find somebody to help you trail your bike home, because I'm not even sure that's safe to drive home. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
I know
I
Snickers
think
had a
going
story
back,
about it too.
I think going
Oh, go
back
ahead, finish.
with maintenance, Strike, is like there's gonna be some things that are unavoidable, right? On trips, is like you're gonna have problems. Like when you got 15 bikes on a long road trip, you're gonna have problems as it is. But the more that you can mitigate on the front end makes the trip more enjoyable for everybody else, right? It keeps everybody off the side of the road in the hot blazing sun or in a rainstorm trying to fix someone's bike, trying to figure out what we're gonna do. It's a lot easier to do as much prep work as you can ahead of time, just to make that as smooth as possible and enjoyable for everybody. So do your due diligence.
With that too, sorry guys, but with due diligence, especially not just trips, but anywhere that you're on a formation ride or whatever, you have stops. Anytime you stop, always take a good look. Take a quick good look. It takes 5 seconds to take a quick glance at your clutch cable again, your brake, lever, everything. Just real quick, it takes 5 seconds. You're looking at your tires, everything like that. I know of an instance where we sent home a member just before a trip because his back tire wasn't going to make the trip for 1,000 miles.
Yeah, and
Stuff like that.
I spotted one on a short trip when we were heading up. We were heading out north, and I was riding down the road, and this is another one I wasn't leading on, but I was just tripping out and like zoning out on this guy's tire, and I was just like, "What is that shiny line that I'm seeing?" So when we stopped, I took a look, and it was just straight cord right there, and I ended up having to send him home and be like, "Yo, man, that we're about to hit some canyons. It's gonna be a long ride. That tire is not good to go." And the Snickers, I know you were telling me a story a little bit ago. If you want to tell us about that.
Yeah, shots. You remember this one from Sturgis a couple years back? We literally spent the entire day riding from Salt Lake out to all the way out to what was it, Oak City?
Yeah.
Or Hill City. Anyway, good ride, and I checked my tires multiple times. And if you recall, when the next morning, I just happened to roll the bike perfectly to where I actually was able to see a spot in my tire about 4 inches of diameter that was literally worn through all of the cords. And that previous night, we had come through a canyon in the rain. It was a sketchy ride because it was dark. It was a little bit rainy. It was windy through the canyon. And then we had to go about, what was it, a half mile up a dirt road?
Yeah.
And next morning I come by and I don't know, but that motorcycle was not safe to ride 5 miles into town to get the tire changed. It freaked me out because I still had good tread all the way around the tire. So it was a balance problem. And that one really freaked me out because I do look at the tires. It gave me the realization that not only just look at your tires, feel around them and roll it forward, because on a fat fendered bike like mine, you're only seeing 10 inches of the tire at a time. And I missed that for the full, 500-600 miles. I have no idea how we made that ride and how I kept that motorcycle on the road for that trip. Scared me to death. Scared the hell out of me that next morning when I saw that.
And part of this is buddy checks too, like we talked about the road captain's responsibility and checking everybody's bikes. And, but hey, how many times have this type of issue been found out because you're watching the person in front of you and you're just seeing a white strip on the back of their back tire, right? And so part of this is like, be mindful. Look, while you're riding, you're riding pretty close to people. Is like, check out their bikes while you're riding. If you see something fishy, mention something. Bring it up to the road captain, bring it up to the tail gunners, bring it up to the SAA for safety that's involved. There's been lots of times where people have spotted things that I've been on rides that was nice that they spotted it because it prevented probably what could have been a bigger problem, right?
Yeah.
Like Strike was talking about when we did that ride up north. Pretty sure you lost your Oakleys on the freeway on that ride, but
Yeah. Man, do you know how many Oakleys I've lost on rides, man? I stopped putting them in those places. I've always made sure they're exactly where they need to be now.
And I think someone else's cell phone fell off too.
Yeah, cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And like I'm guilty of it too. Our last club trip that I was on, I just had my bike in to get a brand new rear tire put on. Took it to a reputable place. Figured, okay, I gave it a once around when I got it back, and even Chief and I rode up together on this day, and we both before we left out of Salt Lake, we both did a walk around, and we got all the way from Salt Lake up to Boise, Idaho, and we're just getting off the freeway, and all of a sudden, I went to tap my back brake. My back brake went all the way to the floor. Come to find out, when we finally got pulled over to a gas station, the bracket for my brake, the dealer that replaced my tire, didn't put it into the notch. They just set it on the swing arm. So as we rode, it was just walking back and forth, and finally pulled itself back and ripped my brake line. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
nuts.
it's, you know, I put faith in a dealership, and yeah, I did a walk around, but I didn't do a thorough walk around.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a
And
good
I
comment on there right now too that somebody wrote in here. It says, so I can read this thing without moving the camera around.
I can pull it up.
You
Yeah.
say which one it is, he can pull it up for you.
It's and we invest so much in our scooters. Why risk it all by not listening to what the bike has to say? And that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
If your bike has a sound, I mean, you know your bike.
Yeah.
Whether it's a Rice Rockets, a Harley, if it's noisy, if it's quiet, you know the bike. You know how it should feel. And here I am telling a story just a little bit ago about not noticing a tire that was literally wearing out. Even though it had all its tread, I should have been able to feel that. But you're absolutely right. You listen to your bike, listen to what it has to tell you, because it'll tell you in most cases what's going on with it.
Oh yeah. You know, and it's like that's another thing is that, you know, if a road captain does check your bike and let you know that something's going on, you know, don't be offended, because, you know, how offended are you really going to feel if you're laying on your back on the side of the road, you know? It's like, yeah, it may suck that you're being told not to go on this ride, but in the long run, it's for your safety too. And it's not just yours, it's others, because, you know, we all ride in a tight formation. And, you know, if you have bald tires and you slip a little bit in a corner and you take out you and the bike next to you. So yeah, it's like why risk it all? You know, it's just like you're riding a $30,000 bike and you might have to miss one ride, but it's not a big deal if it's over a $400 tire, you know? I mean, I'd rather replace that tire than, you know, have to try to replace my legs or something like that.
Well, not just money, but think about having to tell someone's loved one that you were involved in an accident that might have killed somebody else because, you know, you didn't want to spend the money to do proper maintenance on your bike, you know, because that's like the worst part of all. And that's, I think, what we're trying to avoid here. And I think that's one of the important, you know, key duties we've talked about as a road captain over and over is safety, right? Is like, the road captain can't be personally responsible for everybody's bike, but he can help that process. You know, he can create processes that help people go through a checklist, you know?
Yeah. I think Kenny brings up a good point right there.
Right.
You know, talking about being, you know, if you own a plane, as somebody that was an aircraft mechanic and, you know, in charge of doing pre-flights on a, you know, military aircraft, you know, had I overlooked something and not done it by the checklist, that jet goes down, that's on me, you know, because I'm the one that signed off that pre-flight, you know, and you know, we should all come up with a good checklist, you know, to go through our bikes. And obviously I'm just as susceptible to not paying attention to things as everybody else is, but you
Being
know,
a commercial
luckily,
pilot myself,
yeah.
I totally get that. You miss something on that pre-flight, that's your life.
Yeah.
It's not
Oh,
no
yeah.
different on a bike. I've been down on a bike. It ain't fun.
I always heard a lot of people say that they did, you know, stricter pre-flights or tighter pre-flights when they knew they were going to be flying on the jet. And I was always like, why would you do that? Why not have the same pre-flight, you know, for every jet? And it's the same with the bike. Have it with, you know, this for the same. It doesn't matter if it's your bike or somebody else's bike. You're going to feel, hopefully, you're going to feel just as guilty if somebody else goes down because you missed something on a walk around as they would if you went down.
No, yeah, 100%. You know, and like those inspections are, you know, drastically important. Like for me, I feel I've always had this sense of responsibility for everyone in the formation behind me when I'm road captaining, right? And if I heard someone went down because their brakes were shot or their tires were bald, no, you know, you could tell me all day long I didn't do anything wrong, but there's always going to be a part of me that just wishes I would have inspected them better, you know? So there is a sense of responsibility there, and like how we lead our rides when you're road captaining is important because that's where most of my sense of responsibility comes in. Like I've always wondered, like when I'm rolling down a road, going through a canyon, and this is a very technical canyon, like I'm hoping and praying that everyone keeps it up more so than when I'm just writing like in the back, you know, because I feel a sense of responsibility. Yeah, I felt a sense of responsibility because I picked this route, right? I picked this speed, and that's why I always try to make the safest decisions I can as road captain. So we have a lot of decisions we need to make as road captains, you know, when it comes to formation movement, you know, and this is where a lot of the time of the show is going to be spent is when we're talking about like movement and formation, right? There's a lot of subtle things that road captains do that a lot of people don't notice, I feel. Like when lane changes are made, how lane changes are made, merging into traffic, speed, stuff like that. Like I'm calculating everything. I don't know about you guys, but you know, one example of like proper decision making in a formation would be like if I'm like I was telling you guys earlier, if I'm traveling, you know, 6-8 miles down the highway, I'm not going to move 5 lanes over into the inner lane just to have to move back out again, causing all those lane changes. Because every time I feel like every time I make a lane change, it's temporarily increasing the risk of the ride, right? Like I'll move all the way on the inside of the freeway if I'm going to be on there for like 20, 30, 40 miles, right? And I'll hang out there as long as I can. You know, like what are some things you guys do while moving in formation to keep the formation safe like that?
But definitely, you're mitigating lane changes, like you said. You're mitigating, you know, you're watching your travel, something as simple as travel times. You know, don't try and plan a ride right in the middle of rush hour. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because you're gonna have to deal with traffic and everything like that. Try and maybe take a route that you know doesn't have as many traffic lights. You know, keep the group together. It makes it a little bit simpler. It's one less thing to have to think about while you're doing the ride.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
like merging onto freeways or also like hairpin turns or something?
What about you, Boots? You want to take that one?
All right, so with merging, and you have a whole bunch of merging exits to where you have merging on a freeway. You're getting on an on ramp to where you are going, where your average speed is about 50 to 60 miles per hour, but everything on the freeway is already going about 70, 80, to where you have to, especially with how many people you have in your group, you've got to take a little bit slower to make sure your group stays together to where you can merge safely, but also to where you can merge safely and not, you know, cause that kind of an incident to where someone might get hit by a car, you know, in the right lane when you're trying to merge onto the freeway, or, you know, if you have, especially if you're on a 2-lane road, say this year, you know, you have a 2-lane road, but it merges into one, and you have cars that are to the left or to the right of you, whichever way the lane's going to merge. You have to kind of slow it down, keep the grouping a little bit tighter to where it allows you to stay as one unit, as a big bus, as an example, to where you can just merge and cars either go in front of the whole group or behind the whole group. So that way it keeps everybody safe and keeps everybody going. I mean, a little bit slower is a little bit safer on that kind of aspect, and it always depends on the situation as well.
Yeah, and you know I've always told people that you know road captaining takes a lot of foresight, right? And that's kind of like where you're hitting a little bit is that a lot of people don't realize that like as a road captain you're almost looking into the future a little bit. A lot of people make the mistake as a road captain of doing their lane changes when they see that you know your exit's 1 mile away. You know, if you've got a formation of like 30, 40, 50, 100 bikes, 1 mile is not enough to make even 2 lane changes, you know? And you're dealing with merging in that section. So you have to think, you have to have that foresight and see that coming, see when you're like 5-6 miles away from your exit and start moving over then. You know, a lot of that takes a lot of foresight. How you're going to be moving, you know, 10 miles, I'm going to have a big intersection coming up. We're going to make a left-hand turn onto, right? So it's like a lot of the times, like I'll have a green light that I can see that light is green from like a quarter mile away and I'm slowing down, right? Because honestly, on a big intersection like that, I want to catch the red, you know? I want to catch that red so we can get all lined up together at that light and we can all make that turn in a more condensed formation, right? So it does take a lot of foresight. And there's a lot of things that we, road captains do while in formation that really requires that foresight. Like even like Scooby, when you're prepping to take a formation out of a parking lot, what are some of the things you do and you're looking at? Like I'm pretty sure you're picking what exits you're taking, you're tracking where all the medians are, lights. You even know when the intersections, like how long a light will last, right?
Something as simple as like you said, pulling out of a parking lot. Am I gonna take exit A that gives me 30 feet to line everybody up in, or am I going to go all the way around to a better exit that gives everybody the chance to line up, get set, and then pull out in a nice formation? Stuff like that you got to think of. Other traffic coming in and out. Yeah, you're watching the cross and don't or walk and don't walk signs. When that starts flashing red, or if you can see the timer clicking down, I'm slowing down. It's just one of those things. It takes time, and there's a lot of simple little things that people can point out to you, and you're like, I never thought of that before. When I was getting my CDL the first time, and my instructor pointed out, hey, pay attention to the walk don't walk sign, and look at the timer on that for when you're going through or approaching an intersection.
Yeah.
Never even thought about it.
No, dude, they're a huge help. Like,
yeah, they are,
and
you can definitely take that into a ride formation.
Yeah, when you're moving down the road, it can take you and your formation, like 15, 20 seconds to move through that intersection without you even like realizing that. So, that yellow to red, takes what, maybe 4 or 5 seconds.
Yellow to red is 3 seconds.
Yeah, so like you got an additional 20-second counter that's sitting right there at the intersection that a lot of people don't even pay attention to, but that is a huge help.
Yep.
So with Snickers, like so when we're moving down the road, what's some movement techniques you use or examples that you can think of that kind of fit that keeping the formation safe while moving down the road?
A lot of that goes back to your pre-ride briefing. You really need to have a good tail gunner or a couple of tail gunners. If you have a larger formation, you've got to have them disperse through the formation. And having that tail gunner that's watching you for signals on, whether you're going to switch lanes. Your pre-briefing is also going to say, I've got 50 bikes. The likelihood that we're going to catch a light that splits us up is extremely high.
Yeah.
Best thing to do is to plan that in advance and just say, if you're the one that gets stuck at that light, don't try and race through it. You become the temporary road captain for that group, and you have a plan that says, okay, well, you ride safely up to, we might slow down a little bit. Well, you ride safely up till you catch up to us. It's going to happen when you're going through cities. As far as out on a road, on a highway, literally, it's going to be a matter of the pre-briefing again, what people are looking for, and telling people, look, you're not all road captains. If you see that we need to move over, you see a lot of the times that these people will get out, and several bikes will go zinging out into another lane, breaking formation. The best thing to do is as a road captain, you need to watch that, and that's that hyper vigilance you have as a road captain, watching your entire group and estimating when you can make that lane change safely, and communicating, whether it's by helmet or by hand signals, or even just put a blinker on, that you're going to move into another lane. And again, going back to a briefing, letting people know, when I put my blinker on, I'm waiting to have everybody get ready and go over as a group. Then everybody makes that lane change. And there's obviously there's always exceptions, and it's not always successful. But the hypervigilance you have to have as a road captain is what I think, Strike, you were talking about early on, and it just wears you out. If you have a
truly.
day-long ride, you're hammered at the end of the day because you're trying to make sure that the safety is there, that you've told everybody, okay, I'm going to ride 5 over. I'm not going to be doing 90 miles an hour down the road, no matter how much room I have. I'm going to be doing 70 zone, 75, whatever. You just got to make sure that everybody knows that, and so that everybody knows what is going through your mind. And I've got a story that Jacques, you'll remember this one, coming back from, I think, that same trip. We were coming back through Idaho. I was road captain out there. We were all beat. It was coming back from Montana, and we get through Idaho, and I saw deer on the side of the road out in an alfalfa field, and they were walking towards the fence. I started slowing down, but I did not signal to everybody else that I was slowing down. I did not make that known for whatever reason. We were all beat up. It was a long day riding, and I expected people to understand what was going through my mind. And we had one of our riders shoot past me as I started slowing down and actually hit one of the deer. Luckily, he didn't go down. He did kind of ride that deer off into the side of the road, and everything was safe on it, luckily. But that was my fault as a road captain, that I did not make my intention to slow down obvious, and we could have had a really bad problem that occurred from that.
Yeah. And you're 100% right. Like, it does, like you're saying, it. My anxiety after a long trip, especially where I've been road captaining the trip, is that my anxiety is through the roof, and I'm pretty sure Boots has seen it. I know Boots has seen it when he comes up to me after I've been road captaining for a while, and he tries to come up to me with something simple, and I've just been like on edge. And I've snapped at him a time or two, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, people get stressed out. People have anxiety on certain things. As a road captain, you need to, you at the same time, you are a person. You aren't a robot. You have these stresses and anxiety more than most riders that are even in the middle of the group or the end of the group. It's just, you are there in the front to where whatever happens to you first. And, you are also taking into consideration everybody that's behind you, what's going through their minds. And, is exactly the same thing to where even on short rides, even on these weekly rides, everything is going through your head. So the anxiety level by the time you're done are through the roof.
No, 100%. And I, like you were talking about earlier, so Wyatt here brings up a comment about talking about the animals, and how you can never control them is essentially what you're saying, right? But here's the thing, though, is that this kind of goes back to when you're briefing, right? And as a road captain, you planned a route, right? You know that you're planning a route through a high traffic area, or a high traffic animal area, right? So you're going to brief on that and at least make everyone aware. Like, yeah, we can't control when an animal's going to dart out at us, but we can keep everyone informed that we're going to be going through a high traffic area for deer, cows, and cattle, right? We're going through a free range area. Please don't hit the cattle. Stuff like that.
Ratchet.
I didn't know what you were talking about. But yeah, sometimes you have a guy that, comes around the corner and doesn't see the cow in front of him 50 yards away, 25 yards away.
And that's coming back to what I stated is, you're a road captain. Whatever happens first is happening to you. Is to where I was involved, in an accident. Same kind of instance, is like, you never know what's coming. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when some guy is going to turn right from the center lane in front of you, and you end up, you have to make a judgment call. What do I do? Stuff like that. And especially with, a certain situation like ratchets, to where, if you're a road captain, you're going up a wet canyon at night in the dark. It's wet. You're senses are dialed down to 50%, if not less, because you've been riding all day long, and now you're stuck in a canyon when it's dark and wet, and you can't see anything. You're coming around a corner. I mean, yeah, you might be going 25 miles an hour, and that might, that's pretty slow, but you never know what can happen. So you got to be ever vigilant of everything. Like, that's where Strike's foresight of trying to foresee the future comes into play, is to where you can kind of do that, but at the same time, you got to realize that there are some instances where you can't, and you just can't foresee the future.
Well, I know my crystal ball from Harley Davidson is back ordered. It has been for the longest time. So, but someday maybe it'll come in and I can mount it right on the handlebars. But
correct.
And that's like, no, it's true. Like, that's where I say is that road captain's one of the more stressful jobs, right? It's high anxiety, it's busy, and it's a bit thankless. I'm not saying that road captains go out and thank your local road captain or anything like that, right? But all I'd say is just listen to what they got to say.
It goes back to that hyper vigilance as a road captain. You just coming up the on ramps, you have got to be knowing exactly where the traffic is coming up that on ramp and react accordingly. You've got to know, like you were saying, Strike, a bit ago, where we're moving across lanes of traffic. Just the hyper vigilance that you have to have is almost impossible to maintain. And
well, I mean,
yeah,
I guess the best way to put it would be that you have the same hyper vigilance as an individual rider, or that you should, right? Except for it's multiplied by 10. Because you're multiplying this car and what he may do, instead of like over an 8-foot radius of your motorcycle. Now it's multiplied by, a 300-yard radius of your entire formation.
Right.
And you're trying to control that whole area and watch it for that whole area. So real quick, what I was going to be doing is going around and kind of get everyone's advice for anyone who's thinking or offered a position as a road captain, what you would give them as advice for a road captain. Scooby, let's start with you.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know who you were starting with, so I didn't want
Good question.
I just picked you. I just threw a name out. So
to. Be mindful that there's gonna be rides that you're gonna hate because it's gonna ruin the ride for you. There's gonna be so much going on that you're not gonna get to enjoy the ride. You're gonna be constantly on edge. You're gonna be constantly thinking about what's next. What do I need to do? Is everybody all right behind me? Am I, all those things we talked about earlier. It's going to be hard, and you're going to be tired at the end of the day. And if you're not the type of person that can walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, your bike's not ready to go," road captain is probably not for you.
yeah. All right. Shots, I was going to hit you next. Let's hear your perspective of advice to a road captain coming from a president. What do you want to see in a road captain, man?
Well, yeah, I've never had that opportunity yet to be a road captain, but I've been a member riding with a lot of road captains, and I've ridden with all of you being road captains, and I'm grateful for how serious you guys have taken that job and keeping everybody safe. I think that my advice almost stays the same on every single leadership position. Strike is, stay humble, have a thirst for knowledge. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there that talk about road captaining. There's books about road captaining. There's, even right here, we have, 4 awesome people that have been road captains. Is like, if you have questions, all these guys I know are willing to talk to you and help you. And so give them a call, talk to them, say, I have a question about this, as far as road captaining, how would you handle this? Or what are your recommendations? And so my advice would be, stay humble and stay willing to learn and don't be arrogant. So.
Yeah. All right, Snickers, what do you got?
I'd like to just follow on with that the Shots was saying. Know yourself, know your limitations, know your personality, and know what you can do to help everyone else have a good ride. Times that might be also delegating some of the longer, more mundane portions of the ride to someone else and let them be the interim road captain for a bit. That gives you a chance to take a breather. But know yourself, know the route you're going to go on, know the ride, know the people you're with. It's not always possible to know everything, certainly, but do the best you can, and know that it's up to you how good of a road captain you're going to be.
Yeah. All right, Boots, what do you got advice for new road captains?
Let's see, for new road captains, whether you volunteer for the position or you are voluntold for the position, to have an open mind is the aspects of what a president is looking for. Is to where he's not going to really, a president, he or she is not going to be looking to name a road captain or call upon a road captain that has no desire to do it or has any negativity towards that. We as road captains, you got to be ever vigilant, ever be a little bit positive, to where you got to be open-minded, to everything. Someone could be appointed a road captain and is totally negative about it, or they can be positive in the situation and totally accept it and adapt that role into what they what they're supposed to do and what they've basically been assigned or volunteered to do. Being a road captain isn't for everyone. That being said, just like that, everyone has choices. Everyone has angst. Everyone has their way of viewing things and perspectives of being a road captain or leading rides or whatever. Just the one thing I've got to really say is, if you want to be a road captain, good on you. It is very stressful, but it is also a lot of fun. And it's good to get out. It's good to be in front a little bit at the same time too. We have safety trainings, like Shas was saying. There's YouTube videos, there's books, everything that can cover being a road captain and being a very safe, positive road captain out there. So,
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
So for me, the final bit of advice that I would give to anyone that's going to be a road captain would be, one, and to me this is one of the most important, right, is to take a breath, stay calm, just stay calm and think about what you need to do. Also, don't, I'm not saying overthink it, but just stay calm. The moment you start getting too much anxiety and you're starting to overthink things, is when you can start making mistakes. But just take it slow, take it easy, and just think about what you need to do, what your next move is. If you can get through what you're doing right now and your next move, then you'll make it through. You'll get the experience and you'll figure out how to work through it. And then beyond that, listen to the experienced riders, the guys in your club that have served as road captain. Make sure you listen to them, take their advice, and know when to listen to other people. Anyone else have any other statements? Any closing statements? Final statements?
One more quick thing. All of us went around and kind of maybe put a fear into some people's eyes about doing this, but also you got to remember, how badass do you look leading a group of 100 bikes or something into an event? If that doesn't give you a little chubby or a big chubby, pretty damn cool, right?
It is good to be in front.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to say goodnight to you guys. It's been awesome having you guys, and that's all I've got.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
See you all again, brothers.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys here soon.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
All right. I just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe for the page. Next up, we're going to be coming out with some more in-depth videos, and we're going to be covering some great topics, and we're going to have those released out to you soon. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and look out for us in the future.